let me know when you're starting. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do a sterile dressing change. The supplies you'll need is a dressing change kit, non-sterile and sterile gloves, your gauze package that you wrapped, your forceps that you wrapped in the pouch. You're going to need a bowl, transfer forceps, and the sterile saline. Next thing we're going to do is clear off the table so that I have room to set up my sterile field. I'm going to open my dressing change kit first. And you always want to check and make sure that everything is sterile when you open it. Make sure that it's not punctured, that everything is still sterile inside, that it has the right expiration date on it. We also would check for a doctor's order to make sure that it is okay for us to change the dressing, and it'll also tell us how often. So I'm going to go ahead and open this away from me, okay? And I would have washed my hands. And then I'm going to take the red bag out of here first without touching anything else. So I'm going to use the tie that's on it, set it off to the side. I'm next going to grab the plastic forceps without touching anything else and bring my tape out. At this point I don't need this anymore, so I'm going to set it off to the side. Then I'm going to grab onto my sterile drape. I'm going to move this over and I'm going to pick this up without touching anything else in there. That safety pin we don't need. So what I'm trying to do is not touch the inside. So I'm going to only touch the outside. And I'm going to lay down the sterile field. The outer 2 inches are not sterile, so I can come over here and even this out. You just don't want to reach across the sterile field. The next thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to take what is left in here and I'm going to use the drop technique and drop it onto my field. I'm also going to use the drop technique with our forceps, and I'm going to take them out of the pouch and drop them onto the sterile field. You never want to turn your back on your sterile field, so that's why I keep doing that. The next thing I want to do is the mitten technique with the bowl. So for the mitten technique, we are going to pull on our tabs, put them in our fingers underneath. And then we're going to just drop the bowl onto the sterile field. We don't want any of this to touch the sterile field. I'm then going to take my normal saline. I'm going to pour off a little bit first, and then I'm going to pour some into the bowl. Always use 2 hands, so in case you start to drop it, you can catch it with the other hand. Then I'm going to use my gauze that I wrapped earlier, and I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to use transfer forceps to get the gauze onto the sterile field. So I'm going to open this up using the tabs. And then I'm going to use these transfer forceps to put it onto the field. If you don't have transfer forceps, you could just take the package and dump the gauze on there using the drop technique. So I'm going to squeeze these together and pull them straight out. Now they were in chemicals for more than 10 hours, so the tips are considered sterile. But I've got to get all of the chemical off of there first before I can use them. And then I'm going to pick up my gauze and put it over onto my sterile field. Then I'm going to squeeze these together and put them back in without touching the sides. At this point, I have everything on my sterile field. I am going to prepare my tape because we are going to need tape to put the new dressing on. So I'm going to do 3 pieces of tape. And then I'm going to get my infectious waste bag and I'm going to hang that on the side of the tray here away from the sterile field. You want to make a cuff on it, and then you want to tape it onto the end of your table. And you want to make it so that it stays open, so when you drop things into it, you don't have to get close to the bag at all. At this point, I am going to go over and I'm going to introduce myself to my patient. My name is Donna. I'm going to be your nurse today. I'm here to change the dressing on your right forearm, if that's okay. And then could you give me your name and date of birth? And that's just to check the patient's identity. Then what I do is I loosen the tape on the dressing because when you have gloves on, it's hard to loosen tape. So I loosen that, and then I'm going to come over and put on my non-sterile gloves to take off the dressing. And when you take it off, you're going to look for any drainage. If there's drainage, you're going to describe it. Is it, how big is it? Does it smell? And what color it is. Then we'll look at the wound, make sure that that looks okay. Then we're going to wad up the old dressing inside our non-sterile gloves, and I'm going to put those in the biohazard bag. At this time, then you would wash your hands. And you want to talk to the patient throughout so they aren't nervous, and it's just kind of nice to have some conversation going on. Now I'm going to put on my sterile gloves, so I have to move this just a little so I have room. My first glove I pick up, and you can touch the inside because the inside is considered not sterile. The outside is considered sterile. First glove is on. Second glove, then I put my 4 fingers underneath the cuff, lift it up, and then my hand will go inside here, keeping this thumb up. Now I have both gloves on. Where do I need to keep my hands? Above the waist, in front of me, where I can see them. Now I can move this table over. I can only really touch this part, okay? So I'm going to get my swabs ready, and I'm going to clean around the wound. So my first swab stick, I'm going to start in the center of the wound, and I'm going to move out in a circular pattern, kind of like a bullseye. And once you lift off, you cannot go back on again. I'm going to get rid of that one. Do a second. Again, starting in the center, moving out. The idea is not to go over the same area twice with the same swab stick. And last one. And normally this is iodine, but these are simulated swab sticks in case someone would be allergic. Again, starting at the middle, working out in a circular pattern. If this were a wound that wasn't circular and it was like a straight line, we would clean from top to bottom. So we would clean top to bottom, get a new swab. Top to bottom on the right side, get a new swab. Top to bottom on the left side, new swab. At this point, I want to take and get my 3x3, and I'm going to fold the 4 corners together. And then I'm going to put a little bit of that into the normal saline, and then I'm going to dab it off on the side of the bowl to get any excess off. Then I'm going to come and I'm going to be cleaning off the iodine. So you start in the center, go in a circular pattern, and work your way out. And do the same thing again. Bring the 4 corners together, dab it into the solution and get any excess off, starting in the center, working your way out in a circular pattern, just like you did with the swab sticks. At this point then, we can put on our inner dressing, which is our 3x3. And then our outer dressing, which is our 4x4. At this point, we could take our gloves off if it's hard to work with the tape and gloves. I'm going to leave mine on right now, and I'm going to put tape over the top to hold the gauze down, and we tape in the direction against movement. If you tape in the direction of with movement, every time you move, it'll pop the tape off. And then I'm going to take my gloves off the proper way. They go into the biohazard bag. And then on my last piece of tape, before I put it on the patient, I'm going to write my initials, the date, and the time. And we are lucky because we are in the morning. We do not write AM and PM. In healthcare, we use the 24-hour or military clock. So we have to convert if we're in the afternoon. If it were 10 in the afternoon, we would add 12 to it, it would be 2200. So I'm going to put this last one on. And then I'm going to make sure my patient is comfortable. I'm going to wash my hands, and then I'm going to clean up my area. I will make sure that I get rid of this bag, and the proper way to do that is to bring your hands under the cuff, bring it up, and then you're going to start folding it in. Squeeze it away from you to get the excess air out, and then roll it down. Take your tape and put that on, and then this would go into a bigger biohazard container, okay? And we'll pretend that this is our biohazard container. Then we will chart, and what we will chart is that we did a sterile dressing change, and for the word change, you can draw a triangle. That's what that means in shorthand for medical terminology. You then would also put on there the drainage, the size, the if it smells or not, and the color. And then you put how the patient did, and we usually say patient tolerated well, or patient did well, or no complaints from patient during the dressing change, something like that.